or about names and faces. Ruth was a sweet and lovely girl and had many boyfriends, but her mother felt it was time she was married. Well, reading a book on the meaning of names, Ruth said, "Mother, it says here that Philip means lover of horses and James means beloved. I wonder what George means." "I hope, my dear," said Mother, "that George means business." Now that you know how to make any name have meaning by using substitute word or thought, you have to know how to associate the name to the face in such a way as to remember both of them. Many memory systems teach a student to make a jinglet with the name, something like Mr. Baker is a faker, Mr. Gold is old, Mr. Radcliffe had a mad tiff, or Mr. Camp is a carnival tramp. This is fine until you meet a Mr. Neposeum or Mr. Smolensky. Even if you could create a rhyme with those names, what I never could quite grasp is how this would help you remember a person's face, or rather, how one would bring the other to mind. No, I don't think that this jinglet system is too great a help. In my opinion, the only way to remember a person's name is to associate that name to the person's face in some ridiculous way. And here's how to go about it. Whenever you meet someone new, look at his face and try to find one outstanding feature. This could be anything: small eyes, large eyes, thick lips, thin lips, high forehead, low forehead, lines or creases on the forehead, long nose, broad nose, wide nostrils, narrow nostrils, large ears, small ears, and stand away from the head. Dimples, cleft, warts, mustache, lines on the face, large chin, receding chin, type of hairline, jutting chin, small mouth, large mouth, teeth, just about anything. You are to pick one thing that seems most outstanding to you. It may not be the most outstanding feature. Someone else may choose something entirely different. This isn't important. The thing that stands out to you is the thing that will be obvious and outstanding when you meet the person again. The point that is important is that as you're looking for this one outstanding feature, you must pay attention and be interested in the face as a whole. You're observing and etching this phase into your memory. When you have decided on the outstanding feature, you are ready to associate the name to that particular part of the face. For example, Mr. Sachs has a very high forehead. You might see millions of sacks falling from his forehead, or see his forehead as a sack instead of a forehead. You can see, of course, that you're to use the same law and principles as you've been taught in early chapters of the book. The most important principle being that you must actually see the picture in your mind's eye. Looking at Mr. Sachs' face, see those sacks falling from every part of his forehead. That's all there is to it. If Mr. Rob Rum had a large nose, I would picture his nose as a bottle of rum and a robber stealing it. Mr. Horwick might have bushy eyebrows, so I would see wicks of them as in candles, and see a woman trying to take them because they are her wicks. Her wick, Horwick. The publisher of this book is Mr. Frederick Fell. The moment I met Mr. Fell, I noticed a cleft in his chin. I simply saw things falling from the cleft, and that's all I needed to help me remember his name. Mr. Fell. Remember that in these examples I give the substitute thought and an outstanding feature. I personally think it's best the name Fell could have meant feel, or the material felt to you, and you could have associated that to any other feature on Mr. Fell's face. The substitute word and outstanding feature chosen is an individual thing. The things you choose are the right ones to use. At first, some people may feel that it takes too long to find a substitute word for a person's name and then associate it to his face. They think that it would be embarrassing to have a person notice that they are staring at them. Please believe me, it does not take any time at all. After a minimum of practice, you'll find that you found a substitute word for the name. It is necessary and associated it to an outstanding feature on the person's face in less time than it takes to say hello. As in everything else, it's the very first effort that is the most difficult. Sure, it's easier to be lazy and just go on forgetting names, but try my system and you'll soon agree that it is just as easy to remember them. The best way to practice remembering names and faces is to just start doing it. However, to give you a bit more confidence, let's try this. I'm sure that before you started reading this book, most of you felt that you definitely couldn't remember and retain the names of the 15 people if you met them all at once. If you took the little test in chapter 3, you could probably prove it. Well, let me introduce you to the pictures of the 15 people right now, just to prove that you can do it. With the help of my system, of course, it isn't as easy with pictures since you see the faces in only one dimension, whereas ordinarily you see people in 3 dimensions. It may be a little difficult to find outstanding features on a face in a picture, but I'll try to help you with each one. Number 1, Mr. Carpenter. This name is no problem because it already has a meaning. The next step is to find an outstanding feature on Mr. Carpenter's face. You might decide on his very small mouth. If you look closely, you'll see a sort of scar on his right cheek. Pick one of these, the one that's most obvious to you, and associate Carpenter to that. You might see Carpenter working on a small mouth. Get the carpenter's tools into the picture, trying to make it larger. Or you have the carpenter working on a scar, trying to repair it. Now the most important, look at the picture of Mr. Carpenter and actually see this picture. See your association in your mind's eyes for at least a split second. You must make yourself see the picture or you'll forget the name. Have you done that? If so, go to picture 2. Number 2 is Mr. Brimler. We spoke about a while ago. Notice the long dimples in his cheek. Can you see the heavy character lines from his nose to the corner of his mouth? As in every face, there are many outstanding features that can be used. I would use the dimples and see them full of judges. Gravel, remember, I used a gravel to represent law, teller. If you went to use policeman, jail, or handcuffs, go ahead. You might see police brimming all over the dimples. Whichever way you want to do it is fine. But look at Mr. Brimler and see the picture you decided on. Number 3, Miss Standish. I would select her bang hairdo. You could see people standing on the bang and stretching themselves violently because they itch. Standish. Of course, a dish standing would serve the same purpose, but like an association into which I can inject some sort of action. Now look at Miss Standish and see the picture you decided on in your mind's eye. Number 4 is Mr. Smolinski. Don't let the name scare you. It's easy to find a substitute, though thought for it. I would see someone skiing on Mr. Smolinski's very broad nose and taking pictures while skiing with a small camera lens. Smolinski. See how simple it is? I have chosen Mr. Smolinski's broad nose. You might think that the receding chin is more obvious. Choose whichever you think is more obvious and see the picture of the skier taking pictures with a small lens. Number 5 is Mr. Hitch. I would see his mustache being hacked from his face with an axe. See the association violently, if you can, violently, and action make it easier to recall. Hacked Hitch. Be sure you see the picture. Number 6 is Miss Bjorsen. Pronounced Bjorsen. The way I would remember Mrs. Bjorsen is to see a boy, son, being that either her full cheeks or mouth or black or dark eyes are more outstanding. If so, those in your association, but look at Mrs. Bjorsen and actually see the picture for a fraction of a second. Number 7 is Mrs. Van Nus. The first thing I notice when I look at Miss Van Nus are her bulging eyes. I would see moving vans driving out Miss Van Nus' eyes and making terribly loud noises. So loud that you have to hold your ears. Get the action in the association. Van Nus. Be sure you see the picture. Number 8 is Mr. Hamper. Notice a very wide mouth. I would see myself throwing all my dirty clothes into his mouth because it's a hamper. Remember to look at Mr. Hamper and see the picture in your mind's eyes. Number 9 is Miss Smith. This is a common name, but don't think that you'll remember it. If you do not make an association, the names Smith, Jones, Gohan are forgotten just as often as the longer and less common names. And there's less excuse for doing so. Miss Smith has very full lips. They almost appear to be swollen. I would see a blacksmith using gigantic smith hammers on Miss Smith's lips. The blows of the hammer are causing the lips to swell. You might want to utilize Miss Smith's long eyebrows. It doesn't matter. What does matter is that you look at Miss Smith and see the picture or association. Number 10 is Mr. Cannon. Pick an outstanding feature. You might notice the ear standing out from the head, or the lines in the corner of the eye, or the thin, long mouth. You can see a cannon shooting out outstanding features, or shooting out from the feature. Pick the association you like and see it in your mind's eyes. Number 11 is Mr. D'Amico. You can't miss the full head of wavy hair. See the hair as a dam, and it's overflowing. Will you scream eek and oh? Or you are running toward the dam, shouting, me go, look at Mr. D'Amico and see the picture. Number 12 is Miss Forster. Oh my god. The trees forest growing out of those heavy, defined lines on her lower cheek. If you want to be sure of the entire name, see the forest growing wild and tearing her cheeks. Forest here. Forest here. Be sure you see the picture. Number 13, Mr. Pfeffer. The P is silent. The first thing that hits my eyes is the cleft in Mr. Pfeffer's chin. I would see lots of black pepper pouring out of this cleft. So much, in fact, that it's making me sneeze. Pepper would be enough to tell me that this Mr. Pepper, if you want to make sure, hear yourself sneezing, like so, with an F sound. Silly, yes? But this will come back to you later, and you'll know that the name Pfeffer, not Pepper. See the picture, number 14, Mr. Silverberg. Let's see Silver Iceberg instead of Mr. Silverberg. Jutting chin. Actually, see it glittering, so you get the idea of silver in there. If you want to use the laugh lines around the corners of Mr. Silverberg's mouth, that's okay too. See silver icebergs on each side, whichever feature you use. Be sure you actually see the picture. Number 15, Miss Cornfield. I would see millions of exaggeration of ears of corn falling from Miss Cornfield's wide mouth. Make sure that you look at Miss Cornfield and actually see the picture or association in your mind's eye. I have purposely used a wide assortment of names to prove that it just doesn't make any difference as to the type of name you might want to go over these faces once quickly to make sure you've made a strong enough association. Now here are the same faces in different order without their names. See if you can't fill the 15 spaces under the picture. When you've done so, check yourself and be amazed at the improvement in your memory for names and faces. If you had any trouble at all recalling any of the faces, any of the names, the reason is that you didn't make your association vivid enough. You didn't actually see the association in your mind's eye. If you did miss any, just look at the face again. Strengthen your association. Try it again. You'll surely remember them all on your second try. If you feel confident, why not try the test in Chapter 3 and compare your score now with the score you originally made tomorrow or the day after. Look at the 15 faces pictured in this chapter and in Chapter 3, and you'll see you still know the names of the people. Keep in mind that if you can't remember the names of the faces and pictures, you'll find it much easier to do when actually meeting people. Aside from finding an outstanding feature more easily, there are many other things that can be taken into consideration, such as manner of speech effects, character type of walk, manner of bearing, and so on. If you happen to be at an affair and wanted to show off or memorize the names of everyone present, you could do it now by using the system you've just learned. You would probably find it helpful to review the names every so often, each time you look at the person. His name should spring to mind. The name coming to mind in this fashion serves as a review and serves to etch the name more firmly into your memory. If you were to spot someone you meant and the name didn't come to mind, ask for the name again or ask someone else to give it to you. Then strengthen your original association. Try it. You'll amaze yourself and your friend. For practical purposes, for those of you who meet people and would like to retain their names, writing the names would help as far as reviewing is concerned. As I said in the preceding chapter, writing in conjunction with the system association is fine. This is a good example of the fact you would, of course, use the systems learned here upon meeting these people. Then at the end of the day, think of each new person you've met, and as the name comes to mind, jot it down. The next day, go over it, this list of names as you look at each one. A picture of the person's face will come to mind. Just picture the person for a moment and see your original association of the name to face. That's all. Do the same thing a few days later, and again a week later, and so on until the faces and names are indelibly etched into your memory. Of course, all this is theoretic because if you wanted to remember these people, it is probably because you instead intend to meet them again. If you do meet them often and recall their names well, then that serves the purpose of reviewing and writing. Names isn't necessary at all. The thing to do is to use whatever is best for you or your particular circumstance. Just make up your mind to get over the initial hump of actually putting my systems to work, and then they will diligently work for you.